Hello, everybody who's watching. Welcome. I think there's 5 of us in the room already. That's not bad. I don't care if it's only 5. It's good to see you all. It seems a bit dark. I'm going to try and get some light on this if I can, but I don't know if I can. Right, say hello. You are Seb, Ronald, Abdullah. How you doing? It's the last show. Finally, I think it's number 40. We've done 40 episodes this season already, and it's crazy actually how fast that goes when you do one a week. But I hope you've all enjoyed it. You've got some value from what I've actually communicated on this, and it all actually helping you in some way on your own journeys. So what I want to do here is obviously it's live. There's no rocket science there. But what I want to do is answer questions and get anything that's out of your head. Say if you've got a question you think, Enzo, I really need to understand this over winter, I need to make this better, whatever it is. We need to understand that first. So I want you to answer or ask questions in the right-hand side. You let me know. You tell me exactly what you want, and I'll do what I can to answer it. So it'll be a bit of a Q&A. But just to kick things off, to keep you up to speed, just got back from Abu Dhabi, and you might have watched it. You might have watched the F1. I was there for F2, obviously for Oliver Behrman, and it was okay for us. We qualified really poor, like P15 again, because F2 just keeps on testing you. Just when you think you've got it sorted, something happens and causes you to not qualify very well. And as you probably watched, if you watched F2, you know for sure that it's hard to be at the front all the way through because it's like rental karting. You don't know what you're going to turn up with each weekend. And I think we've only had probably 4 good race weekends this year. And that's a lot. 14 races or race events. We've only had 4 that are actually been optimal. So it's difficult. So I'm working with a flaming F1 driver, and actually that our teammate is a future F1 driver, Kimi Antonelli as well. And they're both quick, but nowhere in the championship. I think we finished 12th or something. So it just shows you, looking at F2, it's really hard to know who's good and who isn't. And it's really difficult to understand as a driver because you think, right, I'm in F2, this is it. I'm gonna win and show F1 what I'm all about. But so many things happen in that category that disguise your talent. And it's really difficult to deal with. So I would say if there's anyone who's sort of thinking about F2 right now, first off, I advise that you're with an F1 junior program before you go there. Because if you do, like us, have a lot of bad luck and the pace is not there for some reason, it kills your career. Even though you might be the best driver on the grid, you can't show it. And that's not just F2. It's with everything, really. If you're not with a team that's looking after the car right, if your team is just off the pace that year, it's a career killer. So get people behind you as early as possible, really. F1 junior program's great, but also sponsors that understand your situation and don't just look at the results and go, oh, you're good or you're not good, because it's terrible. There's so many drivers that deserve F1, but they don't go anywhere near F1 because they just have one bad year. So you do need people that can read between the lines and understand the true story and see your talent if you've got it. So what I want you to do, like I said, ask any questions on the right. It might help if you put in capitals question and then write the question, because I'm going to miss it. Otherwise, it's hard to read and talk at the same time. Seb, you asked, I want to know what you think of Ginetta Junior as a stepping stone between karting and F1, pros and cons. Right. Now, anyone who doesn't know Ginetta Junior, it's in the UK. Go and just Google it. Have a look. For me, I think it's one of the best categories you can go in. I really do. I think it's, thanks for putting question, by the way, Lottie. I think it's it teaches you racecraft like no other championship really does, apart from maybe Formula Ford, because you're constantly wheel to wheel. You're actually even more than Formula Ford. You're rubbing, you're bump drafting. It's on road tires, so the car's moving around all the time. I think it's a sequential box, so it's kind of one hand on the wheel stuff. But if you go back to, again, YouTube, Brands Hatch, the last round this year, just watch that race. It's like 5 drivers at the front, constantly changing positions, cracked windscreens. It's like if you look at them drivers, you think to yourself, they are ready to do anything. And it actually is. I've worked with people. Dan Harper was one of my former drivers, and he went straight from that car into Porsche and won immediately. So it's like that car prepares you for anything. And I've had other drivers. Robert DeHaan is one of mine, or one I've worked with, sorry. And he went straight from that to Formula 4 and was quick immediately. Freddie Slater, another one, straight to Formula 4. So I would say, even though it's still going to cost about 200K, believe it or not, because of the amount of testing that you do. The race championship's not that much. I don't know, say not that much. It's probably 100 and something. But then the rest on testing, these kids, these guys, these drivers are testing every week, which is good because it builds the skills. That's why I say it's a good championship. And you've got a coach that's next to you most of the time. So they're sat in the passenger side because a lot of drivers are too young to drive the car on their own. So they need a coach in the car and talking you through it. So you're always there with another driver, with a fast coach who's teaching you what to do. They jump in the seat, they show you how to do it. You jump in the seat. Perfect training. So I think just anyone who's just joined, Ginetta Juniors is what we're talking about. And I would advise go do it if you can afford it. It's got a few eyeballs on it as well. In terms of it's with the British GT Championship, so you can get sponsors and things. So, well, it's hard to get sponsorship, but you can. So, yeah, I would say yes, it's a good one. Probably better than just about scraping through F4 if you can't really afford a competitive team. I'd say go do Ginetta's, and you will not regret it, especially if you're young as well. Right, what is a good beginner lap time GT4 Lime Rock? Ronald, I haven't got a clue. I don't think I've even done it. But if you just go, I reckon if you just go on, again, I keep saying YouTube. If you go back on YouTube and look for Lime Rock GT4, look at that. There's your answer. So give us another one. Give us something different. Right, can you find sponsorship for sim racing? I believe you can, but it won't be much. You'll probably get, if you've got a following on social media, you could get product supply. I tell you, the only time I've done this is COVID. I don't know if any of you saw this, but when it got to COVID, being a race driver coach who goes to race circuits, that's death to my career, right? That's like pause on your income. No race weekends. That's it. Stop. So we're like, right, what are we going to do? I know I'm going to train drive. And this wasn't for money. It was just, I want to keep active. I'm going to train drivers. The drivers I've got, I think I had about 15 at that time. Going to train them in a race series online on iRacing, and we'll get together. We'll just bring as many drivers as we can to keep ourselves race fit, match fit. So I did that, started it, and all of a sudden I started to have thoughts of, I wonder if we could get this televised. I wonder if we could show it, live stream it, get some big names, get it on the TV or some kind of big platform and show it. And within 2 weeks, I promise you, it was amazing. BT Sport signed us up and they said, right, we want you to stream it, get the commentators. We had to do all this, get the drivers in, and we'll show it on TV. Because there was no live sport because of COVID, it was a lockdown. It was March, April isolation, I think I called it. Yeah, the first championship. Have a look at it. Have a look, actually. YouTube that. I got Lando Norris in. We got Barrichello in, and I got hundreds of drivers to come for this championship, which was great because we're on TV in 2020, and that meant I could get sponsors. And I weren't getting sponsors for me. I was getting sponsors to give the drivers prize money. And I think the second, so we did that. We got money in, and whoever won a race got like $200 or whatever. And it sort of worked down from there. And then the champion got more than that. And then in the second time, I got the sim company to give us a $250 gift voucher for sim racing for the winner. So that was, and it was really easy. It was like literally call up, because no one's advertising, no one can do anything live sport. I could have named a price. I should have aimed higher. I should have said, right, 10 grand. But I was just thinking, I just want to get something in for the drivers. So yes, my moral of the story is, if you've got eyeballs on you, or if you've got eyeballs as in people watching the championship, the online racing championship, yeah, get sponsorship, but it won't be much. It'll be a few hundred, and you can put it on your car. You can obviously put it on your social media. You can say to them, we'll let their clients or one of their clients do a shootout so they can join the race. There's lots of different things, but it'll be a small benefit to them. So it'll be a small price that you can charge for it. Right, next one. What are some techniques you might employ to train drivers in spatial awareness? Right. Spatial awareness, I think, again, is on the simulator more than anything. You can do things with tennis balls, obviously, showing, first of all, this finger to eye, knowing where it comes in. If you can put them adjacent to you, like I can see my hands now, if you can do that, fine. So I know you've got width, spatial width. You can actually see visually, fine. Then it'd be on the sim. And I would say, make sure when you're doing it on the sim, you have just one monitor. You don't have the wide screen. If you've got a triple screen, switch them to off and just use the single one. So you're kind of then having to guess where everything is. I think that has been, for me, the quickest way to start to learn it. But spatial awareness is really, it's quite a difficult thing to train. So you can do tennis ball things, someone's throwing them at you. So the actual training of the brain, and you're catching them last second, they're sort of coming from the side. Even the ball that you hit, you got a ball tied to your head, you've seen the boxing one. All these things making the brain work in a way where it has to react and you don't know what angle it's coming from. Boxer training, if you're boxing, perfect. All these things help with the brain kind of linking to trusting what's out there and then gauging and having a better way of measuring or what's around it. So the physical side's good. And I'd say jump on the sim and just keep the kind of blinkered monitor, and that helps you as well. And when you're out there, when you're on the sim, go really close to the edge of the track like you would when you're going to turn into a corner and you think, right, I want to be on the white line and then go in. Then watch the replay and see if you're doing it or not. And also in races, was I actually close to that car when I was going into turn one, or was I miles away? So you've got to really do it, show the brain if it was good or bad, go back, do it, show the brain if it was good or bad or improvements. So I think it's kind of you can approach it from different angles, but I'll do that. But spatial awareness, cracking that question. I've never thought about that one before. Right. How to get teams interested, even though I have good results, good attitude, but not a lot of money. That was my life. I had the same problem. I didn't start racing until I was quite late. I think it was 94. So I was actually 18 at that time. So, and honestly, you might think, Enz, that was ages ago. It's different then. It was no different, I promise you. It's exactly the same now. So I went for club racing and all this, but I was just cocky. I would phone teams up saying, I'll win in your car. Put me in the car. I'll prove it to you that I'll win. And I had I had some race wins before, so that helps as well. I eked my way through two seasons. I won the championship in the second year, so at least I could boast that. And I just backed myself, and I made sure I told them as well. And eventually, if you come across the right way, you don't pee them off and they're like, oh, you're just cocky or whatever. If you start to learn how to sell, someone's going to say, okay, actually a driver's pulled out. Can you come to the test tomorrow or today? Get there now, and you just have to go for it. So it's a bit of salesmanship, really. And if you think about how many cars are out there, how many teams are out there, if you constantly badger them, and even ones that are a bit below the level you want to be at, if you can't quite crack that level, you think, okay, I'm going to at least try and get a drive in this level. Pounce on them teams and them people, even if they're a one-man band and they just happen to have a spare car, and they have. What can I do to get into that car? I'll work on it myself. I'll prepare it myself. You've got to really think out the box and just be good at sales. And I promise you, you constantly do that. And if you got the speed, something happens eventually. Even if it takes 2 or 3 years of talking to people, you'll get your shot. And if you're thinking about GTs, start to think about coaching. Start to think about coaching gentleman drivers. Say if they're doing caterhams or they're doing GTs, and you're there coaching them. Again, like we said with Ginetta's, you jump in the seat with the driver's seat, showing them, then they do and take turns. You get these relationships with gentleman drivers. If you've got like 3 or 4 on the books that you're coaching, and very, very, very often, one of them will say, do you fancy doing the 24-hour fun cup with me? Or do you fancy come in and do this race with me? Or actually, I can see how hard you're working. I'd like to help you in racing. That's how things happen a lot of the time. And I've had that with drivers I've worked with, not coached. Actually, yeah, I've coached as well. But they weren't great drivers, but still 10 years, 20 years later, they're racing. I'm like, how the hell did they do that? I didn't have money. And it's usually that story of going into coaching, training people that have got money, impressing them. And they're like, right, I can see that you want to race. I'm going to help you. And I think that's something I've never spoken about actually, or not much on the Race Driver Coach Show, but it's a very valid route, should we say. Right, next one down the list. Good morning, Marcus. Hello, my friend. I like you. I remember you. Are you still going, buddy? It's like, are you still racing? I saw a few comments that you put on my recent videos. Thank you very much. Thanks for answering. Appreciate that. Right, I followed Miata, who also struggled his F2 season. Yeah, I read Behrman and Antonelli testing Super Formula. How did you know that? Yeah, they're going this Wednesday, I think, or Thursday. I think the actual test is Friday for them two. And Antonelli is a bit ill at the moment. That's why he missed the last two races this weekend. So hopefully he's better for the F1 test. I tell you what, Antonelli, such a nice kid. He's so cool. He's a massive Senna fan, as I am, as you can tell with that. Yeah, he couldn't turn up for the race, for both races, because he had a fever, which is a shame. Do you think Japanese ladder is good? Yes, absolutely, 100%. Now, I can tell you this, and I couldn't have told you this a few years ago, but I can now because Liam Lawson went that route, and he was doing F2, obviously, and then Red Bull said, right, we're going to chuck you in Super Formula because you've done F2 for 2 years. And he is so grateful that he did it. One, it's cheaper, but actually I think Red Bull paid for most of it. But anyway, it's half the price of F2. However, it's half the amount of races. It's 7 races. So it's obvious. But that car, using the same chassis as F2, that car is absolutely amazing. It's like 6 seconds off an F1 car, which is way quicker than F2. And it's got like an engine war. You got Toyota versus Honda. So they're pushing the boundaries. The way they go about racing is so different to Europeans and Americans and most of the rest of the world. They are meticulous. The driver is the person who gets to set the car up, which is really different. Usually, all the formulas, even F1 to a certain extent, the teams say, this is the car and you've got to drive it how we tell you, right? That's what they pretty much say. And they don't budge from it. They've got their setup philosophy, which is really annoying because they're not listening to the drivers and there's so much more potential there. But anyway, there's reasons for that. However, in Japan, you set your car up, you become the expert, and you find that 2 teammates go different directions with the setup because it fits their driving style. Genius. So you get the best out of the driver, but the car's still quick. And that's what Liam liked. He said in the first month, I've learned more here than I've ever learned on the setup side in racing. There's 8 years before, more in a month, because it's down to me to say, right, I want the bump rubbers this, I want ride height, I want the roll bar, whatever. So it's cheaper, and you can get in with in the engineering side, and you can get in with manufacturers. Now, if you're with a Toyota or the Hondas of the world, they've got power. If you impress them, remember there's a culture difference between a lot of the Westerners that go to Japan. So you have to learn that. You have to fit in. You have to be courteous. You have to really play the game in a genuine way. And if you're quick, remember, it's hard to win over there, by the way, because those guys have been doing it for 14 years. I think someone just retired. 15 years, one of them. They're doing that championship around 5 tracks, 7 races, 5 tracks for like 15 years. They are hard to beat. So it's really brutal out there. It's harder than F2, by the way. Anyway, you go over there, you get in with a team like that. They can put you in NASCAR, Toyota can. They can put you in Super GT, in anything, in F1 now. Now at Toyota with Haas, they could even put you in F1 if they liked you. So I think it's a really cool route. So Super Formula Lights, I think, is the one before it. Thinking of iRacing. That's probably the starting point, or you see what's underneath that. Or maybe you go and do Asian F4 to start with, which is, again, is cheaper than Europe. But staying over in Asia, absolutely no problem. Still a good route for F1. The reason people don't do it is they're scared. So if I talk to a dad who's got an F2 driver, son, who's an F2, and I say, I really do think, F2, they're not with a good team. You're just going to be at the back all year. Your brand is going to take a hit if you do it with this team. I would go over to, if I think the driver's good, because otherwise it'll burn them, go over to Japan, do well there, and honestly, it'll open up more doors. The problem is they're scared that they're out of sight. They think F2 is cool. It's where people want to be. F1, I want my driver to be there. But would you prefer them to suck there or do well in Japan and get up the ladder that way? That's the question. So it really is dependent on your situation, but I am a fan of Japan. Right. Remember to put a big question. I think most of you are before asking a question. Got some indoor karting later tonight. Good lad, Kyle. And going to work on breathing whilst driving. Any tips? Yeah, I think you might have saw my breathing one I did about 2 episodes ago, I think it was. When you're on a straight, actually, first of all, just do the first session as it is, right? And just understand or think about yourself. What's my breathing been like since I've just been out? Was I breathing? Was I getting panicked? So learn about yourself or what you're doing naturally. So I wouldn't go to a race weekend or that thing tonight just going, right, I'm going to have all these techniques and away I'll go, because it won't work. It'll be too much to think about and then you'll be slow. So I'd say go out there, pretty much blank canvas. This is a technique, by the way. Blank canvas, no expectations whatsoever. Learn the corners. Like, what is it I've got to do here? What's the most important thing about turn 1, about turn 2, about turn 3? Make notes. So this is knowledge. Now, people underestimate the power of knowledge. Now, I teach 4 areas of the brain: balance, agility, strength, and endurance. Now, balance is like the foundation. It's to make the mind, it's the mental model, basically, in a way where it's aligned with your goals. Knowledge is in balance. It's in that area. So if you get the knowledge up front about how to drive, you go out there, hopefully your cart's all right. You go out there and you drive to that very disciplined. Like, you're really concentrating on, I know what to do here. I know what I want the cart to do in this corner, and I've got to figure it out. Get your head there first. So keep it to technique to start with. Then once you get there and you say, right, I'm driving well now, then we move into the mental side. Then it's like, right, can you do it on demand? Can you do it in qualifying? Can you do it when you got somebody here behind you? Then we're talking about the breathing. And I would say, like I said before, on the straight, nice deep breath. Breathe out with a smile on your face, or breathe in with a smile on your face, but have a smile on your face and immediately tell yourself what to do with the next corner, and keep resetting yourself that way. So you have a little back straight, deep breath, right, break deep, gotcha, or exit, whatever it is. And you keep coaching yourself on the way around with nice breath work. I think breath work is good to just recenter, but once you actually do feel recentered, there's probably not much more use for breath work until you start to lose control again. So I'd say the best thing is focusing on telling the brain what to do while you're out there. First of all, knowledge. Second, go out there, no expectations. Third, execute, and then do the breath work. Does that make sense? Let me know. Right. How do you practice a technique effectively, efficiently on a sim? Use data. Now, I don't know if you use VRS, Virtual Race School. There's others out there as well. I think Garage 61 is another one. Use that to work on technique. If you can see somebody who's done a good lap time, which you can on VRS, you get a reference time, you look at their data, you take yours, you put yours on theirs, right? You can see what's quick and what's not. You can see their brake shape. I've noticed on iRacing, which is different, by the way, to real racing, which is really annoying because I'm bad at it, is when you hit the brake in a lot of cars on iRacing, you have to gently increase the brake, especially on GTs. The brake shape's more like that. It's kind of like a mushroom. Where in racing, when you normally first hit the brake on most cars, unless it's ABS, it's upright, it's vertical. You hit that brake nearly as hard as you can in a single seater. You do that quite often in some of the cars in iRacing, the rears lock or the front locks. So you've got to drive it like a sim, I'm afraid. And like that's why a sim driver will kick a race driver's backside because they drive on the sim if they're good, because they'll drive it like a sim wants to, not like they really do in the real world. So I would say look at the data on VRS and things like that, overlay, go out, do it again, overlay, blah, 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 carry on, rinse and repeat. That's the best way. Right, next one. What could be a good job path to get into racing? I would say I'd say coaching, like I said earlier on. I think if you've got experience in some kind of form of racing, whether it's karting or cars, or bikes or whatever it is, I think coaching is the best way. I started coaching within my first year of racing cars, so I hardly had any experience to be a coach. But I worked at race schools, which is another good thing. If you've got a race school within 2 hours or whatever, they pay you like 100 to 150 a day, dollars, pounds, euros. So it's actually not bad pay. But also you're at the track, you're in a car, you're probably teaching the general public to start with, which is fine. But then you have these days where you teach corporates. Interesting, sponsors there. You're not allowed to talk to them about sponsorship, but you never know. You could get a relationship. I've heard about it in the past. Jason Plato did it. He got sponsors, I think, from working at Silverstone Race School. And also you start to teach drivers that are there for like one-off days and things. You know, it depends on what school. So I'd say race schools, coaching, even mechanicking. Actually, a sponsorship manager for a race team would be pretty good if they've got that sort of application. I reckon just anything that gets you in the industry. At the same time, it also must teach you certain skills that you need to be a better driver or any. So the sponsorship side of it, pretty important. If there's marketing that you're learning whilst you're in that role, it's going to help you racing. And also with coaching, just your car control and communicating with people. It really helped me actually. Doing driver's briefing when you've got 20 people in the room and you're doing a driver briefing before they go out. That helps with communication skills and public speaking. So I think it's, yeah, anything that really that's sort of, even if you're working, I've done one job. I was a mechanic at one point. I was a track day organizer at another point. But also I worked at Shennington Kart Club and I was just a marshal. So it was anything I could do to get in, and you bump into people. So I'd say any part of the sector, buddy, there's no real, this is the best job for it really. If it was, it'd be inundated. A bit like actors that do waiting and waitressing. They're just there because they might bump into somebody and it gives their days free. So I'd say, can I work in the industry and does it fit? And does it teach me stuff? Good. Right. Who else has got a question? I've lost my way now. What could be a good job path? Yeah. I've completed a rental karting. I'm looking into, what's your opinion of the next step after rental karting? Depends on what country, because some countries have got virtually no racing scene. So then you have to move to a different country. But I'd say club racing if you haven't got the money. There's a few championships out there that you can do for under 20 grand in the UK. And I think there's a one or two maybe you can do for fairly cheapish in America as well, and Europe, and you know, Germany's got Formula Ford and all this. So I'd just say go to like 750 Motor Club website or BRSCC. And even if you're not from the UK, just look at them and you can see that most of them championships, the people that compete in them are people that have got day jobs and they might just be able to save this 20K or whatever to run. And a lot of them championships are 750 Motor Club or run by BRSCC. So take a look at that and just take your pick. Could be a Ford Fiesta or whatever. But it's like everything. The more you test, and the more you spend on the car, it just gets, you can go up to 50 grand then. You can spend whatever you want. But there's a few of them that you can get away with without spending too much. 50, right, I'm 15. This is Jack. I'm 15. I follow up my question. I'm trying to get into GT3s and get paid to race, asking if there is a way to get that. I would say is all about your results. So if you're in GT4s and you're not winning consistently, it's really hard to get a paid drive. A team will only pay you or give you a discount on the budget, at least, is if they know that you're going to put their car up the front. And if you can't prove that, it's really hard to get a paid drive. In fact, it's like paying, it's like asking a company to pay for somebody a job position when they know that that person's no good at that job position and they can get way better. They're just not going to get employed, right? Now, 50 candidates, they probably think only 3 of them are good enough for this secretarial role or whatever it is. Same with driving. If you haven't proven that you can win, and you're one of the best out there, you just won't get paid. It just doesn't happen. Again, going back to that driver I still work with, Robert DeHaan, stupidly fast, came into Porsche, won in his first year. He gets deals, he gets offers, he gets teams coming to him. Where you get other drivers that have been in Porsche for 4 years, they probably won 1 race, maybe 2, not even that. Not a chance, not an offer. They still have to pay and pay. So you only cease paying when you start winning. God, it's cheesy, isn't it? But yeah, that's what it is. Right. Next question. I'm looking down. What type of social media content do you think will help me best get more sponsorship? I would say it's more that it's not what you post. I'm not an expert on this, by the way, but it's not really what you post. It's having the following. So as long as it's done with integrity, I don't think you can go wrong. If you start to get, the tens of thousands of followers, that's when, and followers is a thing that's kind of dying now, because now it's more the For You page. So people get your stuff and your content without actually subscribing now. So it's a little bit different to what it used to be. So followers is not the right word, but if you get interaction, views, likes, and all this, and it's quite a big number, like you put something up and it's got like 5,000 likes, which is quite a big ask. I never get that. I think I've got one that's like 1.4 million. Weirdly, doesn't do anything, by the way. I didn't get anything from it. And then I've got some that have got 4. So I'm the worst person to ask because I haven't got a clue how it really works. But I'd say the interaction is the biggest thing. Followers helps for people that still look at that demo, that kind of reading, but it's how can I build that up? And I think in racing, it's more like doing car reviews, doing your opinions on what happened in F1. Anything that really gets people watching and pumps loads of energy into your social media, that will then start to bring the dollars. So behind the scenes stuff is cool for race drivers because it's stuff we never see. That's quite a nice thing. Everyone sort of got all this stuff about, I did this result, I did this and this, but actually show us the dirt. Show us you going to the gym. Show us you speaking to the camera like I do and just expressing yourself. This is tough. To build a career is so difficult. And I think if I had all the money in the world, I would, and I saw a driver open up their heart on social media and you're following the journey, I'd be like, I just want to help this kid out. So I think that's another angle. Just heart on the sleeve. I'm going for my dream. So I think that could be a good thing, bud, honestly. So give that a whirl or just have a think about it. Even chat GPT it. Ask that technology what they think. Right, 18-year-old Filipino, driving advice, someone to get into F1. What series should I join? Anything you can afford. There's not really one route. Obviously, the F4 route and all this is normal, but I'd say to start with, just race anything. Again, going back to Liam Lawson, he was in Formula first and then Formula Ford, which are cheap championships. I'll say cheap, you know what I mean, in respect to everything else that's out there. But you've got others like the Freddie Slater, again, what we talked about in Ginetta Juniors. And you've got other drivers coming from Fiestas and all sorts, mini racing. It doesn't really matter. I think just getting on track in anything to start with that you can actually afford to be good at. So I don't want you to be at the back in a team that doesn't even prepare the car for you. I'd say that's the best way to start because the first years, you're just learning the craft. So it doesn't really matter. And if you don't think that you can go into a top championship like an F4 and be at the front, spend a few years at the lower championships really getting good. So by the time you do get to F4, you're ready to pop because that's where the F1 junior programs will be watching. And if you're not there, if you're not at the front, they just won't be interested in you. They're not interested in someone who finishes P7 all the time, I'm afraid. It's sport. There's no need for that. Right. Thanks for the answer. Right. What's this? With drivers doing Frecker and skipping F3, true. Do they fill the skill gap? What cars prepare you for GT? You know what? Something I've noticed is the way cars are now with the halo, they're heavy, They're clunky things. They're built in a way that's not very dynamic and cutting edge anymore. Like the gearbox is huge. It looks like you're going to use truck tools on the latest F3 car. They're not like they used to be. So the driving style, the best to find out where the real drivers are, you throw them in a Euro Formula or a Super Formula Lights. Then you know how good they are, because that's the same driving style as F1. So same as Super Formula. All the others, F4, F3, F2, are not the F1 driving style. It's quite a big statement, but it's true. These things are not dynamic. They're heavy. They're a bit pushy. They're awkward on the brakes. You can't slam the brake on an F4 car because it locks up too easy. So you have to kind of drive the car how it wants to be driven. You have to ignore your own driving style to a certain extent and just think, right, this car's limited. I'm going to have to manipulate it as much as I can because it's just the way it is. But everyone's got the same challenge. So driving styles now are getting really hard. That's why it's hard to see who's good enough for F1 until you put them in F1, and then you find out. So they could be winning F2, F3, and all this, look like the absolute genius, but honestly, it doesn't mean anything. You put them in F1, a whole different level and driving style technique, then you find out. So it's really difficult. I would say ask a race team, because each team has a different way of setting the car up, and you can ask them, what cars can I be in now? Sort of learn the same sort of style. But that's kind of putting a band-aid over it, to be honest, because as a driver, you've got to be able to drive anything if you want to be the best. So it's jumping into this car, being quick, jumping into a completely different one, GTs, being quick. That's the art of a driver. Like Max Verstappen, you chuck him in a Porsche, and he's got a few Porsches himself. But when they throw him in one, immediately, without any testing, he was as quick as the current one, Supercut, Porsche Supercut champion, multiple champion, immediately. Now that car is completely different from an F1 car. However, that happens to be one of, if not the best driver in the world. They just mold themselves to whatever car they're driving. And I think if he retires from F1, which I think it might be soon, actually, with knowing Verstappen, because he wants to try other stuff, he'll be quick in anything, I promise. A bit like Alonso. They just adjust. So remember, as a driver, it's your specific job role to get into a seat of a car, figure out what the car wants, and give it what it wants. I said earlier about having a driving style for setup. That's fine. That's just tweaking. But the actual philosophy of what that car needs, it's your job as a driver to find it out and give it. That's all. Not romantic at all. It's just that's your job. You're the engineer behind the wheel. So driving style-wise, if it's an F4, then you drive an old F4. Even that's a bit different. So it's kind of just trying to drive the specific car or near to like an older version of it. It's probably the best way, to be fair. But you got to be good, jack of all trades. Right, what else we got? Any more questions? How to get the most out of yourself each day? I would say preparation is big. Before you go, make sure you're fully prepped. A bit like what we said about the rental karting. Knowledge first. Doing simulation work, watching onboards, writing out what to do at the main corners. And when I say the main corners, I mean the corners that are more important for lap time. So like turn 2 and turn 7, okay, I can lose a tenth there. I'm not going to think about them. I'm going to think more about the chunky ones that have got really important exits or combination corners you can lose loads of time at. So you got all the knowledge there, done. Visualize that lap. What's it going to feel like? What am I going to do at this corner? Right, I've got it. Now the brain can do it automatically. I've got everything in there. Knowledge is first. Then second, go out there, do it, obviously. Drive with no expectation. Come back, do a debrief. How was I on these corners? Look at the data. Go back out again with just one thing, maybe two if you're feeling a bit juicy, but one thing that you want to change in this next session. And you only focus on that, one or two things. And then you come back, did I do it? Yes, no. Did I do it? Yes, no. And if you did it, you move on to the next level, the next things. And I think if you do that, you stay so process orientated and it's structured and you can measure it that your race weekend should just keep going up and up and up. The opposite to what most drivers do. They do a bit of prep. Yeah, I know what to do. Don't worry, it's fine. Go there. They've got expectations. I want to be fastest. They try, they drive, they make mistakes. They come back frustrated. They do a bit of a debrief, which like, yeah, I've got 10 things I need to change in this next session. They go out there, try and do it. It's a mess. And they're just plateauing. They're probably the same. They might just about do it at the end of the weekend a little bit better, but it's got to be structured. So I'd say do that. Hold yourself accountable. Get people to watch you from the outside. Take video of you versus P1 guy or gal going through that corner. So intel is important, and just be hungry for finding out what you suck at. It's like, right, what's the next thing I need to do? And you keep there, and then you just look up at the end and see what result you've got. It's not really important. I want you to grow as you go through the weekend, and that's a lot more powerful because you're going to get a better result anyway. But pay less attention to the result apart from feedback, and just focus on you building each session better, and peeling back the layers until you're the complete driver before qualifying, if you've got that much time. That's the best way to, that's what I do with drivers, by the way. I keep them focused on process. And each day, same, that's the same when you're working at home. What have I got to do today? Do I need knowledge? Go and do it. Get to lunchtime. How well have I done? I hardly ever do this, but I think I should. How well have I done? Okay, how do I want to maximize this afternoon? What's the to-do list? The 2 big things I want to do, 1, 2 things, and then you'll have a successful day. Days will build. So I think that's another good thing. How can I start karting with no money at all? Geez, that's a hard one. Put it this: you just go and win the lottery, or go and speak to someone and say you want to get karting. Will you pay for it? And they'll say no. I think there's virtually no way to start with no money, but you could go and get the money. If you say, I need $500, €500 to do a test day or a rental kart event, you spend the next 2 months, if it takes that long, you're doing something wrong. Anyway, 2 months, saving up to 500, earning 500. Think about ways you could do that. Then when you get it, you're blowing on racing, which is crazy, but we do. And then you've done it, and then you see how you're getting on. You make contacts when you're there, and yeah, go to race weekends before if you want as well to make contacts. But really, to start with, you're not going to get in that seat without putting money forward. Every driver you know of has had somebody pay for them, or they've paid for themselves in the initial phase. And then once they've got the results, that's when the big boys say, don't worry, we take the bill now. But until that point, it's on you. It's like starting a business. If you want to start a business and you want investors, but you've never done business before and your idea is like fairly okay, no one's going to invest. You've got to put your own money in first. That's just life. So go out there, earn your 500 or whatever it is to do a arrive and drive event at an indoor-outdoor place. It won't even be that much. It's probably like 200. Save that money, spend it. It's really straightforward, honestly, and then take it from there. It's a good idea to approach companies like Porsche Design to be like a brand ambassador. Yeah. Really just trying to develop. It is. Yeah. If you've got following, again, back to social media, if you've got following, they will be interested in it. But I think someone like Porsche, you're going to have a squeaky clean image brand. So check all your social media on every single platform. Is there anything there? Have I shown a picture of me getting drunk with mates? Right, delete. So anything that you think is off-brand for a company like that, because they're only going to attach their label to you if you echo the same brand that they've worked decades to create. If you tarnish it in any way, it will be an instant no. That's stage 1. Stage 2 is you must have a big following for a company like that. You might want to start small. You might want to start smaller companies, local companies first, to understand what they want, to understand how to give them what they want. And then you start to hit the big boys once you get good at it. But yeah, you just need, if you've got, like I say, if you've got eyeballs on, like with Bearman, he's getting so many deals offered to him, lots of money just for like 4 posts, 4 social media posts. That's all they want. But that's because he's got like 2 odd million followers and he's been in a Ferrari F1 car. That's different. That's not like most of us. It's really hard to recreate that. But if you scale it down, say, right, I've got 3,000. Who would be interested in that? Start to get brands on there, and then you build and you get bigger brands later on. But partnering with them to sort of give you a better image, It's okay, but I don't think it works. I think it's a lot of time spent doing something where you're not going to get much benefit. You know, people won't sponsor you just because you got Porsche Design on the side. It might start a conversation or two, but I think there's better ways to spend your time, to be honest. But okay, we're nearly there. I have a very specific question. In an interview for a scholarship, what should I do to increase my chances? There's usual things, right? That when you're doing an interview, I think number one is understanding what they want. Normally, they want somebody who, because I've had someone do it last Friday actually. No, yeah, Friday just gone. He had a scholarship interview and he passed it with flying colors. And he was just himself. He portrayed how much dedication he's put into the sport already. He showed how much work he's done. Like he's got a newsletter, he's got a website, he does this and that. And he sort of won them over in a way that's like, yeah, I can tell that you want this. And more importantly, when you're giving money to a driver, I want to feel like you deserve the shot. So I think that's the best way. It's like just come across in how much it means to you, communicate that, what you've done in the past to work on it. And then on that side, it's like just be grateful for the opportunity and treat it like a conversation rather than a performance. It's like, I'm going to go onto this call, this interview, if it's Zoom or in person, and I'm just going to have a chat. I'm going to tell them exactly what I've done, how much it means to me. And I'm going to get on with these people with a smile on my face. And I think if you do that, you're more yourself, and it's usually enough for you to get through. It won't be the thing that trips you up, put it that way, rather than trying to say the right thing all the time and then stuttering and then getting flustered and not being yourself. And then, I want to do it again. If I could do it again, I would have been more natural. Do that. Be more natural first. And I think it's amazing then. And then if it's not good enough, it's not good enough. You know, there would have been other factors probably. If you come across well, there'll be other factors that actually was taken into account. So yeah, be yourself, enjoy it, and use it as an experience. You can't lose. If you think I might mess this up, it's not going to be. It's going to be a mess. But if you think I'm going to this conversation, I can't lose. No matter what happens, I'm going to learn, and I'm going to have a good time while doing it. You'll be at your best, and then you stand a good chance. So just do that, bud. Right. Anybody else? Which sim is, in your opinion, the most realistic? I love iRacing. However, the tire model sucks. And a bit like I said before, the brake shape's not completely right. But if you're racing against most people, it's all right. But if you want to get that last bit, the brake shape's a bit funky to not trick the system, but just the way it wants. But the tire model's just way off. So you have a bit of a slide, especially in the F3 Dallara. You have a real you kick the back end out and you correct it, and you know for sure now this tire model is going to make that next corner impossible. The rears are going to be so overheated. So that's the only thing I don't like about it. But I'd say I like that one. Assetto Corsa is the other one I use, just because it's the only other one that's got a good multiplayer. Because I use it to train drivers basically. So I need the multiplayer to set up a session and then we both train. But when you're on that one, the model has to be good. So you download it from Race Department or whatever it's called now. You download the mod, and if it's a good one, then it's actually really good. The steering's sometimes a bit funky, so it needs adjusting. So I'd say realism, but the graphics suck. Realism is Assetto, but good all-rounder where you can really get your head around just driving the car how it wants to be driven on a very precise circuit normally is iRacing. So them are the two I stick to. I don't really do R-Factor. I haven't done it for ages. But the new Assetto's coming out soon, I think, if it's not out already. So that'll be interesting. That might take it up a peg. So it depends on the mod. If it's a good mod, then I think Assetto just ekes it. But the iRacing online stuff is just top notch. I love it. So I might see some of you on there because I'll be on it over winter. Which of these countries start karting in UK, Spain? I think UK is a little bit better, I think, just because the circuits are all so close together and it can be done a little bit cheaper, in my opinion. I've never done a database on this, but if you're going around Spain, that'll be a bit more spread out, which means more costs and things. And it depends on what you feel, but I think UK is pretty good. The thing is with the UK scene is the circuits are all tight and twisty. They're not like, apart from PFI, they're not like the European circuits, which are smooth. So if you're thinking top level stuff, you want to go to Europe eventually, but just to learn it, learn all conditions, get good in the wet, get good in the cold, tire warming, really aggressive racing. I think the UK is pretty good for that. And like I say, it's all confined, so it's quite cheaper. Right, a potential sponsor. They're discussing my application in November. It's December now. Anyway, I haven't heard back from them. Oh yeah, okay, for an update. Does it come? No, just get in touch. To be honest, there's nothing to lose. If they haven't got in touch, it's a bad sign, honestly. Because if they were, we want to use this to help us sell this product or service, we better call him or her. They would do that. But if they're not calling, it means probably they're not interested. So what? Nothing to lose. I'm going to annoy the hell out of them. So yeah, that's something I used to struggle with, and I hear other drivers do it. But over the years, I've found just give me a yes or a no. And if you put them in that situation without being rude, it just frees up time. It's like not like we've got to talk to somebody else. Make sure, by the way, you're always talking to the decision maker, that person, because the person underneath, the manager, the person, the marketing department, they just take forever, and they probably haven't even discussed it with the top person. So I think make sure you go in there and get an answer. Say, right, within a week, I want a yes or no. That's what you say to yourself, and you got to communicate that in a respectful way. But don't worry about badgering them, honestly. But do it maybe on a call, because then they talk to you direct, a lot easier than a text. If they're texting or emailing, it's just too fluffy and not powerful enough. So say, right, can I set up a call for a catch up? Much better. And you think, right, by the end of the call, I want an answer in your head, okay? And take them that way, or at least a deadline. So yeah, mate, pound them, honestly, because no news is not good news. So yeah, I think just turn the wick up there. Right. One more. There's an agents who specialize in looking for sponsorships and would be hiring social media manager for myself in any way. I'm trying to grow the social media. Can you just tell me? Oh, yes, there are. There are. I mean, I work with WH Sports. That's a sponsorship, a sports sponsorship agency. Look them up. They're Ollie Behrman's managers as well. So basically, they do sports sponsorship, but they also do driver management. They're not going to go out and get you sponsors because it's hard. They say it's just too hard for single drivers. But if they've got an F1 car, they can sell that pretty easy. If they've got an F1 driver, no problem. Football teams. So don't go pitching to them saying, I want to race F4. Can you get me sponsors? Because they'll say no, because they know it's a full-time job and it's too hard to do, right? We all know that. But yeah, they all, I think every company wants social media manager in some way because everyone's doing such a poor job. So go do it. Right. Anyway, that's it. 52 minutes. Crikey. Thanks for anyone who's been here from start to finish, both in terms of the series itself and for this video. It's been a pleasure. I'll start it up hopefully again when we start next year, just before the first F1 round, probably with a live one again. Seems to be a thing I'll do. We'll do that. But yeah, thank you so much for watching, for being a part of it, for giving me your questions, and make sure you just keep posting the questions on if it's social media, on these comments for the videos that are put out. Email me direct, enzo@enzomucci.co.uk. Any way you can get questions, because I need them really to produce the videos. Very often I press record and I don't know what I'm going to talk about, but I'd love to have a list of questions so I can just say, right, that's episode 1, that's episode 3, blah, blah, blah. I like to be organized. So yeah, thank you, everybody. Lots of love. Have a great Christmas and wishing you all the best for next year. And until then, see you next time.